All right, let's get into it. Today we're going to crack open one of the most successful designs in the entire history of life. You know, when you think of a machine, you probably picture gears and steel, right? Well, we're about to see how a single, tiny cell has absolutely perfected the art of survival over billions of years.
I mean, think about it. These guys have been on Earth longer than just about anything else, and they are literally everywhere. So what's their secret? What is it that makes a single, seemingly simple cell a true master of survival? That's the big question we're going to tackle today.
And to get our answer, we're going to do something pretty cool. We're going to deconstruct one of life's most efficient designs ever. We're treating the bacterium like a minimalist survival machine, and we're going to take it apart piece by piece to really understand how it all works. Okay, so let's dive right in. We're going to start from the outside and work our way in. This is all about the bacterium's first line of defense against a, well, pretty hostile world out there. Let's call it the armor and outer gates.
So we're basically going to peel back 3 different layers of this defense system. First, there's the outer shield, the capsule. Then you've got the tough body armor, or the cell wall. And finally, the really selective gatekeeper, the cell membrane.
So, first up is the capsule. Now, not every bacterium has one, but for the ones that do, oh man, it's a huge advantage. It's this sticky, kind of slimy outer layer that makes it super hard for your immune cells to grab onto it. It also acts like a raincoat, basically, preventing the cell from drying out.
Right underneath that, you've got the cell wall. Now, this is the bacterium's body armor. It's this rigid, tough layer that gives it all its structural support. It's what holds the cell's shape together and protects it from just getting crushed.
And the final barrier before we get to the good stuff inside is the cell membrane. Seriously, just think of this as the ultimate bouncer at a nightclub. It's got a very strict guest list, carefully controlling every single thing that tries to get in or out.
All right, we're past the gates. So let's explore the command center. This is the engine room where all the action happens, and it's also where the master blueprints are kept.
And this entire inner world, it's filled with something called the cytoplasm. This isn't just empty goo. It's a buzzing, bustling factory floor. It's this gel-like soup where the cell's metabolism churns, where it grows, and where it makes copies of itself. This is really the heart of the whole operation.
So how does this tiny machine manage all its programming? Well, it's got this brilliant 2-part system. On one hand, you have the core operating system. That's the main DNA, all coiled up in an area called the nucleoid. That's the essential blueprint. But then, and this is so cool, you've got what you can think of as swappable software, plasmids. These are tiny extra bits of DNA carrying bonus features, like say the code for antibiotic resistance.
But who actually reads those blueprints and builds everything? That job falls to the ribosomes. These are the cell's tiny, tireless little protein factories. They're like 3D printers that read the genetic code and just crank out all the proteins the bacterium needs to live, work, and survive. All right, let's move on to the really cool stuff. We've seen the armor and the factory floor, now let's look at the external gadgets. This is the upgradable toolkit the bacterium uses to move around, attach to things, and even talk to its neighbors.
First up, the flagellum. This thing is basically the cell's outboard motor. It's a long, tail-like structure that spins around like a propeller, pushing the bacterium through whatever liquid it's in. Super simple, super elegant, and it just works.
Next up are the fimbriae. So if the flagellum is for moving, these things are for staying put. You could think of them as tiny little grappling hooks. They're these hair-like structures that cover the surface and let the bacterium just latch onto stuff so it doesn't get washed away.
Now this brings us to the pili, and this is where it gets really wild. They might look kind of similar to fimbriae, but their function is way more sophisticated. These are the bacterium's communication and data transfer ports. Bacteria use these to connect to each other and, this is the critical part, pass those swappable software plasmids back and forth.
And of course, you can't have a top-tier survival machine without some backup power, right? Well, that's where inclusions come in. These are basically internal storage lockers, little reserve power packs where the cell stockpiles nutrients for a rainy day. It's how it survives when times get tough.
And this, right here, is where it all connects. That ability to transfer plasmids using pili, that's the secret to how bacteria evolve so incredibly fast. This is how they can share useful genes, and it is the exact mechanism behind the terrifying spread of antibiotic resistance. So this brings us to our final section. Let's put all these pieces back together and just appreciate how they form this unified, almost unbeatable system. A tiny, perfect engine.
I mean, when you step back and look at the whole picture, it's just incredible. From that multi-layered armor to its internal command center and that upgradable genetic toolkit, every single part we've looked at works in perfect concert. There is absolutely nothing wasted.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? It really all comes down to one thing. What we have here is a single, highly engineered cell, elegantly and ruthlessly designed for one purpose and one purpose only: survival.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. We've seen just how efficient this little machine is. If bacteria can use this amazing toolkit to trade genetic upgrades like antibiotic resistance almost instantly, what does that mean for our future, for our ability to fight them? It's a pretty heavy question.